He is South Africa's most controversial president since the end of white minority rule in 1994. Now, for Jacob Zuma, the end may be near as he faces mounting pressure to resign. Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. It's been a tumultuous 9 years in office for South Africa's 75-year-old leader, Jacob Zuma. Time marked by economic decline and nearly 800 allegations of corruption. In December, Zuma was replaced as leader of the African National Congress by his deputy and heir apparent Cyril Ramaphosa. Then this Wednesday, Ramaphosa released a statement calling for patience as the two men held direct talks on, quote, the transition and matters relating to Zuma's position as President of the Republic. I spoke earlier via Skype with Ebrahim Rasool. He served as South Africa's ambassador to the United States. Mr. Ambassador, thanks for joining us. You are a senior member of the African National Congress, the ruling party of South Africa, the ANC. There have been talks taking place with President Zuma on his departure. What kind of progress has there been made?
Look, I think that in a matter of a week there have been dramatic progress. I think that they have gotten President Zuma to understand that his time is up. I think that they've offered him one of two ways. It could be done the harsh way or it could be done the more gentle way. He seemed to have chosen initially at the beginning of this week the harsher route in which he challenged the National Executive Committee to sack him. The National Executive Committee was convened, was called together, and then when it became clear that instruction was given also for the State of the Nation address to be postponed indefinitely, I think the penny dropped for him, and so he has phoned Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa and said, how can we negotiate our way out of that? And I think that that's the process that is being undertaken at this moment, that there seems to be a negotiated way out for Mr. Zuma. He's pulled back from the harsh option and wants a far more gentle letdown as president of the country.
Now, there was a problem earlier this week. The president said at a meeting with the ANC leadership that he'd done nothing wrong. He says he sees no reason why he should step down. Why does the ANC want him to go?
Look, I think that very clearly that President Zuma has lost the confidence not only of the country, he's also lost the confidence of the ANC. The candidate he backed for leadership of the ANC did not make it, albeit by a fairly slim margin, but she did not make it. I think, secondly, he is a president who faces over 700 charges of corruption. I think more than that, it is now very clear that he and his family had been captured by certain economic interests. And so the country wants to move on. The country wants to heal, and the ANC wants to unite. And very clearly, President Zuma does not feature in all of those things. I think that he may be the only one who believes that he has done nothing wrong.
Well, let's look at the events over the last few days. The annual State of the Nation address, as you've pointed out, was postponed. Then there was a meeting scheduled for the National Executive Committee of the ANC. That's a very senior body in the ANC. That was postponed as well. Would it be fair to say that the ANC has been very indecisive about this? There's been a lack of leadership to a certain extent.
No, I think that it's not the kind of leadership that many would want to have. You must remember that particularly the opposition parties like the DA and the EFF would want the ANC to ride roughshod over President Zuma. They would want a scenario in which the support base of President Zuma becomes disenchanted with the African National Congress. They would want a messy scenario. I think that what the ANC is showing, particularly under Mr. Ramaphosa, is that it will do things in a way that A, keeps the ANC together, and B, is in the best interest of the country. We cannot emerge from a dark decade under President Zuma's rule and plunge the country into ever greater instability when unhappy people are on the streets or the ruling party splits or whatever the case may be. And so I think that it depends which side of the equation you're on and what kind of leadership you'd like to be displayed at this moment.
Well, let's talk about those charges that President Zuma faces. 783 corruption charges. According to News 24, the new leader of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, told us that the party's parliamentary caucus, or rather told the party's parliamentary caucus, that immunity from prosecution was not on the table, was not part of the transition talks. Later, we heard from other ANC members who said that Ramaphosa never said anything like that. What is the situation?
Look, I think that these are sensitive times, and so it's also a really fertile place for all kinds of speculation, conspiracy, and rumors, and all of those kind of things. I think that in the same way that Cyril Ramaphosa led the negotiations for a free South Africa at CODESA, I think he will bring those same skills to bear, and he will understand that making precipitate announcements to caucus is not the way to go. I think that we are trying to ease a particular situation in the party, in the country. And so I don't think that he's the kind of person who will go shooting his mouth off before a deal is completely struck. That was the success of negotiating the National Party out of power. And I think that the same methodology must be allowed to be used to negotiate Jacob Zuma out of power.
So let me get some clarity on this. Are you saying then that there is a possibility that President Zuma could get immunity? That is still something that's being discussed.
I'm sure that President Zuma would be fighting hard for immunity. I think that the citizenry of South Africa would not want that kind of immunity. And I am happy that I'm not Cyril Ramaphosa, who must deal with it one way or the other. But I do think that there is also a fair body of opinion that says whatever stabilizes the country, whatever gets us back on track, whatever can get the growth rates up again, whatever can rid us of corruption and the bad influence of the Zuma years, that will be in the best interest of the country, and that we must be able to do what is best for the country, but it may also include not giving immunity, otherwise you give a free pass to anyone who is corrupt. So I think that that's the contest that is being fought out at this moment.
Yeah, because if he does get immunity, I'm wondering, Mr. Ambassador, what kind of message that sends to the country. There's a noted political commentator in South Africa, Adam Habib, who said that you can't plunder the state and get away with it.
I think that that is absolutely correct. The alternative is that the state continues to get plundered in the last months of a Jacob Zuma sit-down, that evidence could get destroyed, and all of those kind of matters. And so I think we think that the same way that we approached the dismantling of the apartheid government at that point is a very wise way to go forward.
What happens next?
I think that I believe that it's a matter of days rather than weeks and months. It's a matter of days before we hear the announcement of Jacob Zuma's removal or his voluntary exit. If not, I think the National Executive Committee is scheduled to sit next week. It can meet sooner than that. I believe that there is a majority in the National Executive Committee who would vote for a recall of President Jacob Zuma. I think that there's even impeachment legislation or regulations being put together in Parliament. And so it's really up to President Zuma whether he wants to do it the voluntary way or whether he wants to be unceremoniously removed from power. But I do believe that it's all within a matter of days rather than weeks and months.
Ambassador Ebrahim Rasool, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much, Anand.